offer might not be converting first because you might be in the wrong market, but it might also not be converting if you're in the right market because you might be the wrong price. All right, so this is a really important component of making something make money, right? If you charge nothing for something, then you probably won't make money from it. All right, and so here's how to pick the right price. Okay, so there's a few components to this. One is going to be the price to value discrepancy, so it's understanding how that even works altogether. The next is going to be the virtuous cycle of pricing, which is one of my favorite concepts to break down for people because it was a huge belief breaker for me in my life. And then understanding the correlation between pricing and perceived value. All right, so let's start with the price to value discrepancy. Okay, so I have this little graph here, and the reason that this is so important to understand is that whenever you have services or products or anything whatsoever, people inherently buy because they believe that what they are getting in value is superior to price, right? This is how people make purchasing decisions, right? And the thing is they will continue to buy from you as long as this discrepancy between price and value exists, right? Here's the price, here's the value, all right? And so as long as value stays above the price, then they're happy, right? Now, here's the thing, and this is where you stop getting customers or people, bought from you once and they don't want to buy from you again, is the moment that that value dips below or matches your price, then that is the point of cancellation or the point of no return. So if you're in a recurring revenue business, it would be a point of cancellation. If you're selling physical products or one-time services, then they're not going to refer people and they're not going to want to do business with you again, right? And the thing is that most businesses, believe it or not, are actually below this line. And so they're really only able to make one sale per customer and they can never make another sale again, which massively impacts the business. That's why most businesses don't make money. They always have to find new customers because their existing product isn't that good. And I'm going to be really honest with you for a second. So many times I talk to business owners and they're like, we're so good at what we do, we just can't find customers. The reality is that you probably aren't that good. You're probably mediocre. You're probably average. And the thing is that average puts you here or below. And in order to get repeat business, you can't just be like above average. You need to be exceptional. You need to be remarkable. You need to be so good that people talk about you. And that's difficult to do. And that's why most people don't make money. And that's okay. And that's why you're here and you're learning and getting better. All right. So price to value discrepancy. Understanding this concept in terms of how much value you need to provide is going to be key to making sure that our pricing works. So there's two ways to improve this discrepancy. One is you can lower your price, right? Which is a one-way ticket to failure. The other way is to increase your value. All right, which is always the way that when I'm working with a business, is what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out ways to increase the value and more importantly, the perceived value of the product or services to the customers and prospects so that they're more willing to pay a higher rate. And so part of that's going to be niching down, part of that's going to be positioning the offer and reversing risk and all that kind of stuff, which we're going to get to in some of the future videos. All right, and so like I said, number one is you can lower the price. Number two is you can raise the value, which is obviously the one that we want to go to. All right. So let's go into that. All right. So that's the hard way, and the easy way is to raise the value. All right. But remember, you can only go down to zero, but you can go infinitely high the other direction for value, which is one of the key points. And this was one I remember. I was eating a burger when I was a kid, when I was working at a smoothie shop. And one of the coworkers that I had pulled me aside. He's like, dude, check this out. And he was reading a magazine, because when magazines existed. And he was like, look, this guy bought a $50,000 burger. And I was walking in with my burger from next door that I bought for $13, right? And he said he paid $50,000 for a burger. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, how could somebody afford $50,000 for a burger? That's crazy. And so I asked him, I was like, what does this guy do? And he's like, apparently he's some hedge fund guy, some finance guy. And he made, I can't remember the number was, but I think he made like 20 or $30 million in a year, which they said in the article. And the reason that this was so interesting to me was that I realized that you could go infinitely high in the other direction, but you could only go down to zero. Because for me at the time, believe it or not, me buying a $13 burger on a $6.75 wage was me giving 2 hours of my life in order to get that amount of money. For him, at $20 million a year, he was making, whatever it was, $25,000 an hour, whatever the math is, right? Or he might have made 50. It doesn't matter. I remember he was making $25,000 an hour. And so it took him 2 hours of time to pay for this $50,000 burger, and it took me 2 hours of time to pay for my $13 burger. And so that's when I realized that purchase was actually equivalent for both of us. And so that's what showed me the power of pricing, is that, my God, there are some people who could go infinitely high in the other direction, but I can only go down to zero, right? And so that was a huge belief-breaking moment for me in understanding price to value discrepancy.